So, welcome again to Choosing Kindness, our every other Monday class, Monday evening. And again, when you find that comfortable posture for your body and meditation, it's nice to have a few reminders. Again, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche has reminded me, as if your sides are long, as if your sides are long. Feel that extension of the spine. Perfectly fine to sit in a chair. Have your feet straight down, flat on the floor, or any cross-legged posture that's comfortable for you. You can lightly close your eyes, just bringing that gaze inward. Head is slightly tipped forward, not too high or low. The hands in whatever comfortable posture works for you. Make sure the shoulders are not up by the ears, that are relaxed. Eyes can be focused towards the tip of the nose or the floor in the space in front of you. Slowly deepen your respiration. And as you do that, make any adjustments to your posture. And we may not have had a lot of space today or a lot of stillness in our day. It's super valuable for you to find some stillness every day. It's possible. Gives you space for your mind, space to reflect. So take a couple of minutes, just estimate a couple of minutes, and start at the very top of your head, scanning down through your whole body, allowing any tension to release. And if you'd like, use an inhalation to open up space in any places you're holding tension, and use an exhalation to allow that tension to release as much as possible. And whether you're on a cushion or whether you have your feet flat on the floor right now, feel the grounding with Mother Earth, always supporting us. As if you can imagine roots now coming from the earth, through our feet, through our seat. Okay, not in a leaden way holding us down, not interfering, but feel the support. Branches coming up, holding us, supporting our practice. And let yourself, as much as possible, bask in that comfort, that support, connecting with it as much as you can. This is truly a grounding with yourself. So, these two major components of a meditation practice, major components for supporting you in life in a positive way. We forget this first idea of relaxing. So, that's scanning the body. It's a huge component in your meditation practice. We jump into a position, you close your eyes, and you think the meditation's going to arise. You think the mind is going to be cooperative. Allow yourself the space to relax. It's perfectly great. We need that. So we might say, I don't have enough time. Okay. So when you really fully relax more and more, and when you even find yourself in a posture and you say, I want to meditate, and you might even say, I only have 10 minutes. But even if you take the first minute or two to relax, okay, the meditation will go more smoothly. It arises actually organically when you're relaxed. The natural state of the mind is there. And the second component of grounding and centering is a huge support for life on this planet right now and all of our daily activities, getting through all of those activities. And from here, let's set a motivation. Let's set a motivation. Just thinking your purpose for being here now, what you might be getting out of this time, what you'd like to get out of this time. Just bring that to mind, bring it to heart. Think about directing yourself in that way. And it's certainly nice to want to help yourself, to gain some techniques that help to balance the mind and open the heart. But what if we can then use those skills and a calmer mind state to reach out and benefit others as much as possible? Can you expand a little bit beyond your own interests? The heart of the Mahayana is I want to get enlightened to benefit all living beings. So feel free if you'd like to include something like that in your motivation, feel free. Just taking a moment right now, setting that motivation, and at the very least, putting the mind in a most positive space. So please relax, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So I know we're missing one of our buddies. We made a buddy system 2 weeks ago. We got 3 buddies. Let me explain this. If somebody wasn't here 2 weeks ago, it's perfectly fine. I had an idea, and we did this at another center some years ago, is we're isolated to some degree now. Now people are coming out, we're outside, but we're not quite in the programs at the centers yet, not in full force. And that's where people would meet other people, and you'd start to find a Dharma buddy. And you'd hang out, you found something in common, you go out for tea. It was great. We don't have that luxury now, a lot of us. So here we are in our blocks, in our computer blocks, and it's different, right? So what I suggested was a couple, a few pairs of people, if totally voluntary, if you wanted to have a Dharma buddy. And I'm just curious because I know some of these people are here. Anybody talk to their Dharma buddy in the last couple of weeks, a text or something? Okay, Priscilla's got her hand up. We got a few. Great, Amy, Sarah. So a few people are working it. Okay, how's it going? How's it going? Good, beneficial, or a waste of time, or what? Just a couple experiences quickly. Priscilla's got her thumb up. Amy's got a sideways. Okay. Anybody else? So, and Amy, is it just you were having trouble connecting, or do you want to say what?
She didn't want to really connect to super lot. We did a check-in. I texted her right away. We did a check-in by text, and I followed through on my second day of practice, and then there's been no further communication, and she's not here tonight. I think it's a good idea. I think it's fine what she did. Just knowing that I might see her tonight, or the potential opportunity for communication with her, did increase my focus a little bit. I'm already pretty focused, but it's like some accountability to somebody is useful, and somebody to talk about it with. That didn't really happen, but
okay. So here's a suggestion, because we can create more buddies tonight, because I know some people were like wanted to think about it. They weren't sure. Perfectly fine. You don't have to participate at all. It's perfectly fine. But Amy, what you could do, and I'd be happy to do this for you because I know your buddy really well, is I could just go to her and say, do you mind if Amy selects another buddy? No, nothing personal. Do you have more time and stuff? I wasn't sure if she was really going to have the time, so I was glad she wanted to do. But you are welcome to have another buddy, and you can keep her on the side. If she participates, she may not. But this way, you can have another buddy.
Okay, works for me.
So I'm just going to put this out, and what you do with your buddy is you're getting exercises in this 2-week period, right? If you did not get those emails, let Michael know tonight in the chat. Just put in the chat right now to Michael Burdick. Michael, just raise your hand for a second. Michael is our wonderful co-host. Send Michael an email to say you're not getting the emails because you're new to the class, and he'll put you in that list. And then you get reminders of exercises. It's neat to work with your buddy on the exercises, and you can also work with your buddy on anything else that you're working on, related to I mean, it's helpful related to the Dharma and the class if you like. And again, it doesn't have to be a major thing. You guys decide how much you want to contact. You can text, you can do WhatsApp, you can call each other, you can arrange a Zoom call at one point. So I was doing this when we were in person at a center, and these people, and some of them just said they're still in touch, and it's their buddy that kind of helps them. They get out of bed in the morning, they go, I don't want to meditate. And then they get a text from their buddy going, how's it going today? And the buddy might even say, God, I was really lazy and I rushed off to a meeting. And you can at least connect on why you didn't get to your practice that day. It's okay. And there's no guilt. You can get rid of the guilt and just talk to somebody else about it and say, hey, or you inspire each other. Because I know some of them said, well, I knew that, my buddy was going to contact me and I wanted to kind of do the meditation so I could participate with her or him like that. So it's kind of neat. And so I just want to add, is anybody that's not buddied up yet interested in having a buddy? Okay, Patrick's here. Joanne is looking for a buddy. Joanne, I was going to say, Amy, do you want to mix with Joanne? Would you want to, guys, do you want to exchange, go in the chat, exchange your info or put it in there, and make sure you have each other start with email, and then you can decide how you want to participate. And Amy, I would just say, if it's okay, see if Peggy gets back in touch what you want to do, and you can maybe explain you wanted to do a little bit more. I don't think she would really have a problem, or I'm happy to go back to her as well. Patrick, okay, great. Patrick's looking for a buddy as well. Venetia, you would like to have a buddy? Patrick and Venetia, perfect. Wonderful. Can you guys exchange your emails? Just put it in the chat. And I've got Julie who's looking for a buddy. And sometimes we can have 3 people. That's also work. So don't feel that anybody else right now.
Who is Joanne? Which of you lovely people is Joanne? Hi, Joanne. Thank you.
I just got a sense.
My email, so
I
we
just
just
got a
put our
sense you
email
guys
in the
would
chat. We put our email in the chat then, right?
put your email, or if you can just send it directly to Amy. Amy and Joanne just want to directly contact, feel free.
Okay.
And then Venetia and Patrick send messages to each other. And I've got Julie. Wait, Julie, where did you go? There you are. Julie's looking for one buddy. Is there anybody else that might want to join again? Let's see, because we could put John, are you looking for a buddy? So
Yeah.
Great. John and Julie, do you want to try? And you guys put your stuff in there. Great. Venetia just put her email in there for Patrick. Thank you. And Julie and John, why don't you exchange? And I just want to make a note of the buddies so I can keep track. It's helpful for me. And I've got Amy and Joanne. And was there one other buddy? I think I've got everybody now. Yeah, great. Okay, and you do your best. That's all. I mean, you might kind of explain to your buddy at some point, I don't want to do this anymore, or I'm, explain, and then that buddy can come back and say, I'm looking for a new buddy. That's okay. We'll just see how it goes. See if it's helpful. It's really to lend help, not to interfere with your lives. And Amy's saying, very sweet, Amy's saying, reach out to me. She's happy to team up with people. So she put her email in there. Okay. And I've got a response. Martha, welcome Martha, a dear friend of mine from Chicago. And I have been asking people if you can put your cameras on, because it's a class. If we're doing meditation Saturday morning, I don't care if you have your camera on, frankly, because people want to meditate and they're sometimes across the room. But if we have a class, it's helpful if you can put your camera on so we're participating together. Wonderful. Martha, it's great to see you. Martha's a dear friend that I really miss seeing. So Martha, what I want to ask is, Michael, can you get Martha on to make sure she's on that email list for exercises? She put her email in the marthahoward@gmail. Does that sound good, Michael?
I'm not seeing her name in the chat.
Oh, it went to me. It's Martha H. Howard. So let me send it to you. And then we'll,
Yeah, and the best way to make sure you get on is to just register through the
if you
website, and then I
register,
automatically
that's
get your
right.
email and you're golden.
Yeah, if you do register, which I think most people have, then you're gonna be on the list. But I just sent it to you, Michael. Great. Thanks, everybody. Anyway, thanks for that time. So what I wanted to mention is this component in meditation. Last week, what we were talking as a review, we went through emptiness, if you remember. I'm gonna go back over that, okay? Because it's very profound. And just as a review, we talked about emptiness. We're also been working through the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path, and have been looking at some of our habits and things like that. So what we were working on, and the other thing is we did the very first night in July. July seems like 3 countless eons ago right now, but it's just last month, is in July, in our first class, we listed, as you know, all the issues people are having with the world right now. Let me just give you a taste of that as a little reminder. These are some of the things people listed, okay? Division, violence, especially through politics, gun violence and terrorism, anger and hatred, climate change, global warming, social awkwardness, emerging from the pandemic, trying to get back to work, and trying to get back to work with people that have strong opinions that are different than yours. The Supreme Court, the makeup of that, human rights, healthcare, attempts to control the population in less than generous or appropriate ways. So you get an idea. And these are things that we're dealing with. How do you choose kindness? How do you show up in a spacious, calm, compassionate way? And that's what we're working with. We're working with different ideas. One of our exercises the last 2 weeks was violence, looking at violence. Now, when I said violence, we have violent little experiences, number one, with ourselves. And then there's bigger violence in the world. We know there's a war going on in Ukraine. We know what's going on. We hear a little bit of what's going on in Afghanistan. But there's many pieces of violence in sometimes our inner cities. It's everywhere right now. Land of Medicine Buddha has had some break-ins, some destruction in the last 6 months, just based on the pandemic. In this part of California, because of the mild climate, there's many homeless people. And in fact, there's many more homeless people because of the pandemic. So when you have, have-nots and haves and have-nots, the have-nots are looking for spaces to live, spaces to be safe, to be taken care of, and things like that. And so it's natural that these things happen like that. So one thing is, what's my personal response as a human being on the planet? How do I do it with more grace, balance, support, and what's my responsibility with others? And I see we've got this gorgeous baby with us on the camera from Venetia, and I like, how do you raise your children in this world? How do you be a mom? How do you be a dad? I know some of you are moms and dads, so what's my response? What's my bigger responsibility? And what happens when I get off balance? So the first thing I mention always is a meditation component when it's possible for you. But even the 10 minutes morning, 10 minutes at night, or 10 minutes throughout the day, some silent, calming time that you can a little bit get in touch with yourself. Let me give you, and what I'm doing is just airing some techniques I've learned over years, different things. And I also want to have your participation in it of what also works for you. So I'll make some time for that. So one thing I want to mention is self-compassion practices. Self-compassion practices. I'll give you my own experience. I moved back out here to California, unfortunately not being able to visit Martha on the way out, which I was very sad about. I so wanted to, is moved back out here in September, last September. And I have to say, to some degree, it's been quite a ride for me. It's been quite difficult in many ways, right? And I noticed that a lot of components broke down. When you move cross country and you're giving up a more, it was a very safe quarantine space for me, kind of you're set in an area, everything gets uprooted. And when you move to a Dharma center, which I didn't do initially, I was staying in a student's home, right, in a very small room. So I hadn't shared space with somebody in others since my dad. My dad passed away. He actually moved out of the house to assisted living in 2017. So I haven't been living with anyone for, 4 years at that point. And so there was an adjustment there and different things and things going on because the center had been so taken down by the pandemic closures and all the upheaval of that. And some staff here who were, quite traumatized by the whole experience and things like that, just the standard pandemic things. So what I noticed is my exercise, my prostrations fell off. So I have a pretty consistent practice, and I like to do prostrations in the morning, which is part of my practice, but it's also exercise. And sometimes I'll do other exercise or go for a long walk. And somehow I just wasn't doing that. I didn't really have space to do it, and I was working a lot, and so somehow I had this adjustment a couple months ago, and when I could see my mind was like this, turned, sideways. And I could see I wasn't really doing my full work of what I felt like I could do, and to do it happily, joyfully, with, really with this bigger motivation. And, you can't do it like that every day. Okay. But I just felt like each day was kind of drudgery. And I had this, again, we call it attitude adjustment, where I went, okay, what are the options? So again, Tibetan Buddhism says everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. This is a bit radical because what violence does is I want to blame externally. I'm going to blame something outside of myself. It's not my problem. I'm not having any problem. I'm right. Something outside of myself is causing my unhappiness. So Tibetan Buddhism says no. And you can check and you can keep blaming everybody else and having this idea, if I fix them, if I fix my boss, if I fix my partner, if I can control the neighbor and control my mother, and whatever you say, control your kids, then everything will be great. Well, how's that going for you? I want to ask. Okay. But what you can control, and this is exciting, is your mind. Okay. You are at the controls, but it's just about your mind. You can't control other people. So why don't we have a little pack, all of us together right now, is we're going to try to let go of trying to control other people, because you'll feel so much freer. Now it's a practice. So this doesn't mean you're going to get it right from the outset. It's a practice. Okay. So slowly, slowly, you adjust and you watch yourself trying to control a situation and someone else. And then I have to come back and go, huh, look what my mind is trying to do right now. And you have to check your mind, honestly. I will look at my mind. I noticed certain meetings we were having here. And then I'd kind of watch and go, why are you having a problem right now? To myself, I just say, what's the problem? And then I could see like, oh, I was tight around that decision, or this thing, or I think that should be like that, or, and then I watch, and then you go back to a bigger motivation. What's the biggest benefit here? What I really want here is the biggest benefit for all beings. This isn't my trip. This center has the most potential of anything I've seen. And it's like, wow, we could blow the roof off of the world in a good way. I mean, they're doing it in Ukraine in a bad way, but we could do it in a good way. That's exciting to me, right? And how it touches all of you. Like all of you, some of you live nearby. You will be coming here. Some of you will want to travel here and rent a room. Have a little retreat for yourself. Book a little lovely room to come to a retreat, something. That will all happen slowly, slowly as we reopen. And so let's be a beacon for that. So I just want this big benefit. So I have to check my mind, take responsibility, look what my mind's telling me. a lot of times, let's be honest, what my mind's telling me, I don't know if any of you feel this way, it's not accurate, right? That story's not accurate of what my mind's telling me. Okay. So I have to own that. I have to kind of say, wow, that was a sweeping judgment on this person. And that was completely wrong. Right? So let it humble you. Let it humble you. That's good. We need humility. We need humility. Right? They say those realizations, this is a Tibetan saying, those realizations gather in the lower places, in the puddles. And what they really mean is from humility, I can open myself and learn more. When I know everything, I'm not open to learning anything. When I'm better than everybody, I got it all sorted. But from humility, that's where the realizations gather. Okay? So it can be really helpful, right? So this is one thing I wanted to mention. I want to mention another, more self-compassion techniques, because here's what happens with violence. And what we were also looking at the last 2 weeks was, and then I want to do a little review of emptiness again, because we need to soak our mind in that view, which is the biggest counter to any delusion. But we're also working through the Noble Eightfold Path. And we were looking at right effort. Right effort. Let me just read a little bit of right effort, which again comes under the first basis, because the Noble Eightfold Path, this is like the Buddha's living, how the Buddha lives. You get enlightened, this is how you live, right? It's based on the 3 higher trainings. Ethical morality, number 1. Okay? Concentration, number 2. Wisdom, number 3. Wisdom we're talking about. When I gave you the example we're going to talk about tonight about the pen again. Wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness. Well, that's built on a stable mind, concentration. Okay. Ultimately, concentration and meditation. Okay, what does that mean? It means that in meditation, I will be able, and I have the mind to focus on emptiness directly. I have the mind to focus in a 4-part analysis, which is a proper way to meditate on emptiness, okay? So I can get emptiness directly. I need the concentration to do that, okay? Incredibly pliable state of mind, 9 stages to get to that calm, abiding, single-pointed focus, so I can focus on the absence, the not finding, okay? That's what emptiness is. It's a lack of inherent nature, concrete existence, okay? I'll talk more about that, okay? So that's concentration. And then in order to get concentration, to have the stable mind, right, I need to have good morality, meaning I need to live a relatively ethical life. Why? When you do, your mind is less disturbed, okay? If you don't lie to people, you don't go to bed at night and go, oh, I really shouldn't have told that person that thing, And here's the thing when you lie, is when you lie, you need to remember what you lied about. Because if you just tell the truth, I don't really need to remember because I just tell them what happened. But if you're lying, you have to kind of say, what did I tell them? What was the story I made up about the thing? Did I tell her that or like that? But any of that ethical nastiness that we do, even if you're killing insects, I have to say somehow today I was out with the Rinpoche today with the staff, and I came back, and for some reason there were like all these flies in the cabin buzzing around, zzz, I'm thinking for the class center, and I'm like, oh, and they're around the lights, and they were, and all of a sudden I was like, why haven't I had flies in here? I'm like, what's going on? So again, it's hard to catch them. Like it'd probably be easier to take a swatter, but I was really careful, and I got my, this is sitting right next to me. Like this is my fly catching. I've caught a lot of flies in my lifetime, and I just carefully got one, and it took a little time, and got it out the door, and then I opened the door, and one of them flew out, and I think I got most of them out, and you watch them fly off, and I'm like, freedom. Like it felt good to do it. So you get that little bit of taking care of life. Taking care of life. Nice experience of that. So each of those things we try to do, taking care of your belongings, especially respecting when you borrow something from somebody, taking care, to return it to them, to take care of it, an antidote to stealing. And we're looking at those 10 non-virtues that create ethical balance, ethical morality. I don't mean morality like I'm going to tell you you should. No, I'm talking about how do you want to live your life in a balanced, healthy way? You know, having nice, sincere speech with people, supporting people when you can, rejoicing at the good things that happen for them, having good thoughts about people as much as we can, and ultimately cultivating that view of reality, accurate view of reality. So I just wanted to explain a little bit how they're built on each other, the three higher trainings, and with right effort, right action is what we were talking about. Right action was the last 2 weeks. Right action aims again at promoting this moral, honorable, okay, and peaceful conduct. I like to think of honorable and peaceful, like we're living in the world with this arrangement, you know, so that like when you think of honorable people, genuinely honorable people, they have a certain value system that you can respect, okay? You know, and we want to kind of steer away from and abstain from destroying life, from stealing, from dishonest dealings, things like that. And can we support other people that are interested in leading a peaceful, honorable life in that way? And that's kind of right action. So talking about that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is a lot of this starts with ourselves. If we're experiencing ultra violence on the planet, it often starts in the violence we feel towards ourselves. Self-compassion is really, really important. Really, really important. What do we do about it? So I want to talk about a couple components and do a little exercise with you that I'd love you to continue. Just making a few notes here. So,
Amy, real quick, you said emptiness was a lack of, and I missed that.
yeah, it's a lack of inherent existence.
Thank you.
And it'll also be, these are synonyms, concrete nature. It's a lack of reification, concretization. They're all the same word. Solidifying something, okay? Which is the way we experience our reality. You know, and you see that the problem again I mentioned is when you're like, you know, I could hold this up and people go, oh, there's a phone, okay? And I use a phone, and I happen to use this phone most of the time, and I have a lot of stuff in this phone, a lot of my work, a lot of, you know, today we were up with Rinpoche at one of the temples above, and Rinpoche said, oh, you know, do you know the long Chenrezig mantra right now? This is the Buddha of Compassion mantra. And a mantra is a Sanskrit word. It means mind protection. Mind protection, protects your mind. A sacred saying. Some of the sayings are in Pali, some are in Sanskrit, some are in Tibetan. You could say a mantra in English, right? We have things called affirmations we like to say in English. You know, people wake up every morning, I am love. That's like a mantra. It's a sacred. And what happens with really the more resonant mantras, very powerful, they mean things on different levels. There's an inner resonance. There's an inner resonance to them. It's not really as important exactly what every syllable means. It's nice to know what they mean, but basically they're all designed of this inner resonance and the bringing together on one level in our mind of compassion and wisdom. Compassion and wisdom. And then on an even deeper level, on a highest yoga tantra level, completion stage, it synthesizes the inner winds and opens up all the blocked channels and things like that. You know, when you're doing retreat, reciting a certain mantra, that's its purpose. So Rinpoche said, do you know this long mantra? And I didn't know the long one by heart, and I pulled up a phone. Okay. But then what happens? The problem becomes my phone, right? So something happens to my phone and you get tweaked. Now, phone is somewhat mundane. Well, some people don't think it's mundane, but right. But again, like people lose their phones. People's phones get stolen. People's phones get dropped in the toilet, right? We've all heard this, okay? And we've seen different reactions when that happens, right? So what you want to check with yourself over time, this is not something that happens just overnight. You want to check, what's your response to things like that when you lose an item like that? What's your response when you get the flu? Are you miserable? And do you yell at whoever you share a house with, get me the soup, and or what's your response when you're challenged by a colleague at work, whether it's in person or online? What's your response when your agenda doesn't go the way you want? So this is how we dismantle the violence in our own hearts. And a lot of times we're not practicing enough self-compassion. So I want to talk about a couple components and an exercise I'm going to do. And there's some beautiful self-compassion courses and things. I teach some self-compassion courses that I love, but there's some people like Christopher Germer and Kristen Neff that have these beautiful, beautiful courses and some books they've written on self-compassion. And I want to bring up some exercises I really like from Kristen Neff that I find really helpful. Okay. So what she talks about sometimes with self-compassion and the way the difficulties arise in our lives, okay, is there's 3 ways we can face them, 3 ways we can come in contact. Let me turn that off. Great. Is we can use mindfulness, number 1, and we're all used to that word mindfulness. It's very popular these days, mindfulness. And we'll talk about a little bit, what does that really mean, mindfulness, in dealing with my violence or violent experiences. Second component I want to talk about is common or shared humanity. And these are also common terms that a lot of people are bantering around. And the third one I want to talk about is love or loving kindness. These 3 components I find super helpful in starting to take care of myself, but I'm also doing it in relation to the bigger motivation I have. Is the reason I want to take care of myself, practice some self-compassion techniques, okay, is I really want to be a proponent in the world, or I really want to help beings as much as I can, or I want to move along the path I'm on to get enlightened for the bigger purpose. I want to benefit all living beings, right? I really urgently want to be a Buddha to benefit all living beings, not for my own trip, not so people can think I'm great. There's so much suffering. I'd really love to unlimitedly be able to help people. We all help people in our own ways. And I myself just feel really limited in doing it as a human. Okay. So just think about these components. And so one of them, mindfulness, just overall, in general, and we'll talk more about this in future classes, is a presence of mind with whatever is showing up for you at any given time. Okay. Can I just stay there with it, observing? And I don't need to judge it one way or another. I might originally notice, I don't really agree with this colleague at work right now. And I might notice in the back of my mind, I say they're a jerk. Right? I'm just noticing. I'm not going to lay a big trip on myself. I'm just going to kind of be like, wow, that meeting was really kind of a waste of time and it was really uncomfortable, period. Just observing what's happening. Or I'm feeling really elated right now. This is amazing, how wonderful. And then I'm noticing that I'm trying to hang on to it. And I'm noticing I'm thinking about the next moment and starting fleetingly to go and whatever. But can we just show up with whatever's happening, just observing it and being there with it? So this is what happens with more of the human experience, especially when it's not going well. Discomfort rears its head. Here it is in front of us. Okay? This is the world right now. There's a lot of discomfort on the planet. You could say Ukraine. You could say Putin. You could name politicians in the States. You can side with this person or that person. You could say it was the jerk driving in the next lane today that really tweaked me. Right? You can look at illness in your family, illness in yourself, illness with somebody that you know, the loss of a loved one. Okay, all these things that go on, financial difficulties that you're having, on and on, problems with a child, one of your kids, something like that. Okay, this is life in samsara for the first part. This is life in samsara. I'm sorry. On the planet, as long as you're a human being, okay, you're going to experience some suffering. You're going to experience suffering. There is pain, okay? There is pain. And sometimes there's some teachers that say, pain is inevitable. That's the nature of samsara. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Okay, meaning what's your response to pain? What's your response? So with mindfulness, this number one exercise I wanted to talk about. Discomfort rises. Can I practice just being there, hanging out with it? Yeah, the back of my mind may say, this sucks. Maybe the forefront of my mind says that. Maybe that's what my whole mind's saying in one particular place. And you know what? That's all. That's where I am. You know, there's good days and there's other days. I kind of label them like that. Like instead of there's good days and bad days, I'll label there's good days and then sometimes I have other days. And if in the middle of another day, I'm like, okay. Said I remember years ago when I was running Vajrapani Institute an hour from here, and I was the director. So, you know, you carry a bit of weight, and I didn't act like that, but you know, could make some decisions. And so sometimes I'd come into the building in the morning and I'd see a couple staff people like look at me and well, you know, sometimes I wasn't in a good mood or something. And I'd see we were really a community and they were my friends and some people be like, oh, you know, what's wrong? And what, you know, and they try to fix it. And sometimes I'd say, it's okay. You know, tomorrow it'll be different. Because another thing about samsara, it's always changing. It's always changing. So you're not necessarily going to be stuck with that negative mind all that time. So I'd say, it's okay. You don't need to do anything. I might feel better this afternoon. Or I might feel, you know, something else will change. And it always changes. Always changes. So what happens is, especially Westerners, especially those from the States, we want to run from discomfort. God forbid we should have discomfort in our lives. It's a terrible thing, discomfort, right? So can you just stay there with it and observe? Because here's the thing, if you just practice hanging out with your discomfort and being there, then you'll get more comfortable with discomfort. That's how it works. But we run from it. But again, the more, you know, there's somebody in here right now in the class that I'm looking at, somebody on the screen, and I'm not going to single them out, that's just gone through the last few months, a major health thing going on. Super, like, really critical thing, you know, and I kind of was in touch with her through the different trajectory of the, you know, all that she went through. It's quite extraordinary what they can do today medically, and just to see her adapting to each phase is marvelous. How she's just, you know, she's kind of like, well, that really freaked her out, and then she's like, okay, now we're in this phase. You know, now they said this. Well, now that's not an option. So now plan B. Like amazing, there's a plan B, and she's doing so well with this plan B, and all that happened, and it's remarkable. It's remarkable how she's just rolling. And as a result, she's in a happier space of mind because she's dealing with the discomfort, knowing this is how, and she's some acceptance. Sometimes it's hard, but we roll with it. Michael.
Sorry, first, sorry for having my microphone on. I was still tasking. But hey, I
Yeah.
just had a question about some people that I've run across. I sort of use the term they get high on their bummer. Like and I've had a family member who said she wouldn't know what to do if she was happy. How could you comment on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, there are people, as we all know, who I would call them, they choose suffering, right? We all know people that choose suffering. And there's somebody in my life that is like this. And again, look at your habits. Look at your habits. Sometimes they've been doing it for so long. I mean, I believe anybody can change because I've just seen my own mind and what's possible. Anybody can change, but you have to want to. And sometimes people like the rut that they're in. They find it comfortable. They have no idea that they're in this dirt rut and that it's full of caca and they could have a glorious experience. But a lot of people settle, and that's good enough. And I just kind of let go and be like, okay, there's somebody I know where this is their mantra. This is their MO, if you're familiar with this. When I'll say to them, how are you doing? Hi, how are you doing? I'll meet them. I don't see them that often. How's it going? And a lot of times the response is like this. I'm exhausted. All the time they're exhausted. Like, it's whether they've had anything to be exhausted about, but that mindset makes you exhausted. It's a type of depression as well, but it's also a lack of self-worth, a lot of things, people beating themselves up, right? It happens to a lot of people, but you can change it. If you feel like you're one of those people, can absolutely change it. The beginning is kind of owning up that you're like that. And I know this person, she's been talked to by a lot of people, a lot of people around her that want her to be happier. And I don't think she's really that willing to do the work, to want to do the work. So, okay, I respect that. It's your life, whatever. But again, then you show up suffering, choosing suffering, not having that experience that you could really be happy. It's a tough one. Okay, so we have mindfulness. The second thing I wanted to mention was common or shared humanity. Common or shared humanity. Well, what's that about? Well, when we feel like, I've heard people talk about the pandemic like they were the only ones who went through it. My experience, you don't know what happened to me. My workplace, or I couldn't get on my computer and I had to set this up. Well, that, by the way, this is one thing that really hit the entire world. It's, it didn't just happen in your house, by the way. But there's people where their experience is bigger than anyone else's. But this is the deal, is we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And that comforts me in a way. Not that I want other people, if it's a bad thing, I don't want others to suffer. But the thing is, the more I understand our interdependence, okay, the more positive relationships I really work to cultivate on the planet with anyone, that we have to get it right with everybody we encounter. Now you can't do that all the time, but you work on it, you try. I'm just the little trajectory here at Land of Medicine Buddha the last few weeks. I've just noticed certain issues, just because we're Buddhists here, a lot of people are Buddhists that are involved with Land of Medicine Buddha. It doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean we don't suffer from fear and hatred, not hatred really, but anger, and that we don't have tension in some of our meetings. And we disagree. We disagree at meetings. Now, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing and having a healthy discussion and conversation. Great, but sometimes we get stuck and people blame, and and people go, well, you're Buddhists? Well, we're not Buddhas. We're Buddhists. And Buddhist means I'm not perfect yet. Okay. But I kind of went back after some of these meetings, and sometimes I kind of go, what was going on there? And I go back, and the first thing I do is I look at my mind. I go, what was my responsibility? And really, as my own little exercise in the last 2 weeks, anti-violence, because that was our exercise, is how do you want to, is I kind of took some things down a few notches and kind of went, let me think about how she would see this issue. I wonder how he sees it. What's it like to be him? And I really tried to visualize these other people, if I didn't have the same view, and go, so how would it be looking out through their eyes, being them, and shared humanity, but also knowing we're all in this together. So if we want this to work here, we've got to figure out a way to align and be together in it. And I'm really committed to that. And so I've also got to take some of my stuff off the table if it's really creating tension or something. I'm looking at that constantly, just letting go of like, no, that issue, I don't need to bring that up now. It's not that important. Doesn't really favor. So shared humanity, common humanity, we're going to work on that in the exercise. The third one is loving kindness. I think we're pretty familiar with that. Let me just bring this exercise right now. I just want you to sit comfortably. Let's just close our eyes for a moment. This is, again, a very brief self-compassion exercise you can try. I'd love you to try it these 2 weeks, but I use it all the time. And what I'd like you to do is you close your eyes just for a moment, bring your awareness to a normal, natural breath to just settle the mind. And I'd like you to reflect right now on a situation in your life that is, you might label it difficult or challenging, a situation that may be causing you stress. And although it's uncomfortable, just bring it to mind for a moment and see as much as you can if you can actually feel the stress, this emotional discomfort in your body right now. So let's work on this with the first component, mindfulness. And mindfulness says to the discomfort, this is a moment of suffering. Just think of that in your mind. This is a moment of suffering, period. And you might have other options. For instance, this hurts. Ouch. Or perhaps this is stress. Just hang out there for a moment with these phrases, just acknowledging. I'm giving myself a self-compassion break. This is a moment of suffering. And you breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, it's uncomfortable. You breathe out, it's uncomfortable. It's not about fixing it right now, just being there, observing. Let's use the component of common humanity or shared humanity right now in relation to this challenge you're thinking that you're feeling in your body. Keep it there in your mind and think suffering is a part of life. So I'm using that phrase to just observe and deal right now with this tension, with this stressor. Suffering is a part of life. That's common humanity. Everybody suffers. You can also think other people feel this way. Sometimes we feel we're the only ones, but other people feel this way. Another phrase could be, I'm not alone. Or, we all struggle in our lives. So just using one of those phrases or a couple, just apply it right now to this challenging situation you're feeling. And then if you'd like, you could put a hand to your heart, or just feel the warmth of your hands, or a gentle touch, self-hug, whatever you'd like to adopt, soothing touch, something like that. Using loving kindness now in relation to this stressor, this challenge in your life. Just think, may I be kind to myself. May I be kind to myself. You can also ask yourself, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? Is there a phrase that speaks to you, that speaks this particular situation, such as, may I forgive myself? May I learn to accept myself as I am? May I give myself the compassion that I need? Or maybe it's, may I be strong? Or may I be patient? Just explore that right now, this loving kindness component in relation to the stressor you're bringing up in your mind. Please relax. Slowly, when you're ready, just open your eyes and just observe for a moment how you're feeling. Any comments? Helpful, the practice? It's really simple. Um, it's a very simple one you can pull out at any time, even if you're falling asleep at night. What tends to happen for us is when violence gets activated, which is happening all around us on the planet, we know that, okay? But again, I mentioned many times to protect your mind. And what I mean is, some of you may be news junkies. The news tends to reveal sensational things going on, as we know, in the world. So they don't report a lot of happy stories. They tend to report shocking things that get our attention and get us to tune in. But there's a lot of positive things happening in the world. So it's really what we want to direct our attention, our awareness to. And I just find with the traditional news outlets and things, too much time on social media, on the internet, right? A lot, you get a lot of exposure of that kind of stuff. And I like to protect my mind, and then I choose what I want to look at and when I want to and how much. And just, the more I get into the Dharma, seriously, you see that there's a whole other realm of existence going on that's very, very, very positive and transformative. But what happens is if you're not living in a Dharma center, if you don't have a lot of Dharma people around you, it's natural to be influenced by the influences around you. So this is where a group like this is where our centers are so key. This is where your buddy can help you, to remind you. And I've just noticed in my little world, my little life, so I was living in Pennsylvania, as some of you know, staying in my parents' home, a simple home, and it's in a neighborhood and outside Philadelphia, just any standard middle-class neighborhood is all it was. And I know the neighbors, they're lovely people, but they're not Dharma practitioners. They're wonderful people, though. It doesn't mean you're not a wonderful person if you're not a Buddhist. But I just saw the influences of it was all about, for them, they have families, they have homes, so an important thing is fixing up the home, spending the money on that, getting the contractors. This is what a lot of people are focused on. It could be buying clothes. Some of them were school-age kids, their kids, so that was a big component of what they're doing with their kids. They're great parents, really found them to be great parents. But a lot of times the weekends are consumed with whatever sports team happens to be playing. In that particular area, the football team was really popular. So there's a lot of discussion about that. And then I also would hear in those discussions of the competition of, and people's, and even people's language. So I mentioned to you one exercise is I've been trying to work on subtle things in my language and some not so subtle that create violence. So kill the light. Do you ever say that? Can you kill the light? It's got a little violent overtones, right? How about turn off the light? How about shoot me an email? People say, you shoot me an email, right? Shoot me a text. How about sending somebody an email or a text? So I've been trying to just look at, now shoot has many meanings. I get that. Kill doesn't have a lot of other meanings, right? But it's just looking at those kind of things. So when I'd hear them talk about the football team, it was all like, yeah, we're going to beat those suckers. We're going to, and I found myself after a while to try to fit in. Then once in a while, like talking to my brother and saying, "Are you going to watch the game this Sunday?" Now I couldn't even tell you when there's a game on or when they play. I'm not in that environment. I was never in that environment for years because I was always living at Dharma centers until I ended up back there helping to take care of my parents. And suddenly I'm not in the Dharma area anymore. So suddenly there I am with my brother. You're going to watch a game? Like all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to watch a football game. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a football game. There's absolutely nothing good or bad about it. Please do what you like to do. I'm a huge baseball fan, actually. So, nothing more I love than going to a baseball game live or something. But again, how much of the experience, I just noticed these little influences that would come in. And then naturally people would start talking about the news and this hysterical story and how did that happen? And the neighbors had differing views from right to left. So to hear them kind of argue with each other, and I'd notice when I'd see some neighbor I really liked, and they came in with this really extreme view, I had a little bit of like a start of like, oh, they feel that way? So you see how it polarizes, that potential to polarize, to fragment people, to pull them apart. Okay? And our whole thing again is, by the way, interdependence. Don't forget, interdependence. We cannot get along without each other. I'm sorry. And you know what? You can't get enlightened without sentient beings. No way. You're not going to be able to do it on your own. I'm sorry. Okay, it's impossible. You can get great strides, but you're not going to get enlightened without other sentient beings. You need them to practice, to grow compassion, to grow patience in your heart, to practice generosity. All these 6 perfections we talk about on the Bodhisattva path. And so we really are and we have to figure out, this is our job as a Buddhist, as I'd say anybody on the planet, is we have to figure out better ways to do it, kinder ways to show up. The beginning is to show up with my own kindness towards myself. I'm getting stressed. This person's freaking me out. Take a breath in. Slowly let it out. Why are they, notice what's going on. Make sure you're safe, number one. Sometimes we're not safe. Make sure you're safe. Make sure it's okay. Is that like something happened the other night? And it was interesting because we have had some break-ins here in the last few months. Fortunately, nothing major, but we have had a few things. And mostly we found a couple homeless people living on the property at one point, and But I finished a practice with a group the other night. It was something in person, a higher level tantric practice. We finished at 9 at night. I was finishing the dishes. It's 10:15 now. I'm in the kitchen of the main building. And there's locks on some of our doors that you need a code. So I thought the door had been locked, but somebody had switched the lock so it had been open all night, right? 10:15, I'm about to leave, and suddenly there's somebody in the building. I turn and I see somebody through the window and was like, all I was thinking about the guy that was living, at this yurt and, near the pool, which is nearby and I just looked, but somehow I took a breath in, took a breath out and went, I just did this practice. If I have to die now and somebody's going to kill me, this is probably a pretty good time for it to happen. I felt pretty like, but somehow it just leveled me out. I was okay. I was very calm. I didn't feel fear. What happens is we get afraid. You get threatened. You don't like the colleague saying that. You don't like something going, and we get afraid. Are my kids going to have this is going to happen? The biggest fear we have, just want to ask all of you, what's your biggest fear? I'm just curious. What's your biggest fear? Anybody? If you feel to reveal.
Physical pain, extreme physical pain.
Physical pain, extreme physical pain. I have a bit of a trepidation about that myself. Yep. Thank you. Who else? Somebody else had their hand. Joanne?
Yeah, some kind of along those lines where you have to live with some terrible physical reality. You're in a coma or you have brain cancer or something where the suffering is horrible and you're stuck alive. That's a fear of mine.
Yeah. I will admit I have a little bit of a fear too. Has anybody heard of locked-in syndrome? I have, I don't want that. It happened to somebody very close to me that I know. I don't want that for anybody. Please. You're in a body totally alive and aware, and you cannot move, and you live that for a long time. So we have these fears. What else? What other fears? Anybody?
That my behavior will harm my child because of learned behavior from me.
Yeah. That your behavior is going to harm your child. Now, here's the thing for parents, because some of you are parents, is, be gentle with yourself. Do these self-compassion. You parents really need it, okay? Especially now on the planet. Be patient and kind to yourself, because I know that every one of you who's a parent, I know that you went to the Harvard of parenting schools, right? There is no parenting school, which is alarming. Now, I do know some friends recently that went to some courses on conscious parenting, and I said, I salute you. Thank you so much for doing it. Now, I can't say what the courses were about and how good they were, but there's people that do, but nobody goes to school for parenting, but they learn from their parents. How well did your parents do it? Isn't that interesting? Now, here's the thing, honestly, my parents weren't perfect, but man, I'm telling you, they gave it their best shot, right? You show up, and you as a parent, and I'm just picking on you, Denise, you as a parent, I'd imagine you're doing it as best as you can, right? And here's the other thing about being human as a parent is you're going to make mistakes. You make mistakes, it's natural. So please be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break as a parent. It's not easy. You're probably doing the best you can, but we have a fear that I'm going to blow it and mess up my kid. Yeah, it's a big fear. Jeff, you had your hand up. Who's a parent?
Yeah,
Jeff
it was
is
the
dad.
same thing. I have a young child and I worry for her. I just want the best for her. Not so concerned about myself, but I worry about her. And I didn't know that you could worry so much until I became a parent.
Oh my goodness, yes. And it's just so Jeff and Martha are both in Chicago, both in different parts of Chicago, but it's interesting that the two of them are both from Chicago. And I'm sorry I missed both of you on the last trip through. But yeah, so we have these fears. So nobody said death. Anybody afraid of death? That's a big one. That's a big one.
I'm very afraid of death.
You're very afraid of death.
I'm afraid of, yeah, I want to make sure my mind is in a good state. And I dreamed I saw my past life shooting out of this hole in the center of a city in Italy.
Huh.
It was a very bizarre
Interesting.
dream.
Wow. Well, and I think a lot of us here want our deaths to be good. Of course. That's why we're doing this work, to prepare our minds. So what happens is we get afraid, and these are all the things we get afraid of. Thank you for what you guys had been mentioning. And we want to deal with the fear. So we didn't get to the emptiness part again. We're going to review that in a couple weeks. No problem. I do want to end here, and I just want to see, are there any other questions, comments, anything that anybody, oh wait, here's, thank you, Michael. Michael's put up, thank you very much, Kristen Neff, book on self-compassion, okay? And the Savannah Bananas baseball team, I don't know, this is in the comments.
It's just for you, since you mentioned you like baseball. There's a
Oh, right.
really
It's like a Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. How about that? I'm really, I mean, it's in my genetic makeup. My grandmother used to, I mean, I didn't have a prayer. I think I took my first step in a baseball park. So it's just a little side thing that I don't really do much with these days. But thank you for that, for the Savannah Bananas. That sounds great. Any other comments or questions? Amy, you've got your hand up. Yeah, please.
You mentioned, I'm really interested in learning analytical meditation. You said there were 4 steps of analytical meditation quite early on in this.
Okay, so analytical meditation overall is when you're analyzing like a topic of the Lam Rim, but analytical meditation and emptiness, we can do that in 2 weeks. So it's what's called a 4-part analysis. This is a more traditional way to do it. And I will lead you through that and give you a little preemptor again so we can talk about analyzing. And it's a way you soak your mind over and over through this meditation to try to poke at the solidity that we feel we are, that our self is, and how that's the thing that interferes with our happiness as we go through our daily activities. So thank you. We're going to do that next time on emptiness. And we'll talk more about that as well. So what I'd love you to work on this week is let's continue with right action. look at your right actions of, am I living a pretty moral life? Am I living a pretty life that's in sync with good values? How's it going for you? What do you need to kind of fix up a little bit and fine tune like that? And then, also continuing to counter violent experiences in your own, first of all, in yourself. Are you being mean to yourself at times? Or you get down on yourself? So Denise, Jeff, sometimes you make a mistake as a parent, right? Do you beat yourself up? Sometimes we do. And so again, go back to your self-compassion exercises. You blew it, you're really upset. Your daughter goes to bed, your son goes to bed, there you're sitting, and just be like, this sucks. I'm just having a moment right now. This is suffering. Other people go through this. Maybe Denise and Jeff should be buddied, like you could do, but it's just kind of like you do that. And then you might say, everyone who's a parent goes through this at some point. Lots of parents experience this. There's your shared, humanity. And the last part is maybe I just need a little tenderness here. Like, I really tried. The last week was great. Today I was really tired and really stretched and didn't have much left. Okay, there you are, doing my best. Right? So thank you so much. I'd like to dedicate whatever positive energy we've created to helping us layer more of the self-compassion on ourselves, and to also use our mindfulness to sometimes just watch discomfort and observe it and realize this is part of samsara's nature. This is the world we're in. This is how it works with an ordinary mind. But let it push you. Let it help you strive to get out of samsara. Every one of you can, where you will not suffer anymore permanently. You can do it. So let it inspire our practice. Let it help you get onto the cushion a little bit each day. And I don't care what that looks like. Just sit down and be still for 10 minutes. Just try that. Just start there. Don't worry about, do I have the posture? What did she say about this? Just sit down and be quiet with yourself and see what goes on in your mind. Just start there. That's how I started. I didn't really know how to meditate. And may it help us reach a place where we are unlimited in helping all living beings. I'd really like to direct our paths in that way, especially if you're interested. I'd like to dedicate for all the beings around the planet who need additional healing right now, who are really suffering. Can we direct our merit to them to help them relieve their pain immediately? For all the beings who've recently passed away, may they take a good rebirth to get enlightened to benefit all. And for the long lives of our precious teachers. Thank you so, so much. If you're interested, this weekend, I am teaching for a Brazil center, and you can find these at, let's see, what was I going to, I'm just going to, let me stop the recording.